Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for tuning into another episode of On the Record with me, your host, Candice Cole. As many of you already know, I am a journalist covering Washington, what happens in Congress, in the White House, and also international affairs. And this is my way of getting us beyond the headlines and into the deeper meaning of what's going on and a deeper look at what's happening in the world around us. So tonight we're talking about the Supreme Court's conservative majority ruling on Louisiana versus Calais, which essentially gutted a key protection in the historic Voting Rights Act, which prohibits discriminatory voting practices based on race. So joining us to talk about what happened there and the broader implications of this, I'd like to welcome civil rights attorney and CEO and co-founder of digital media platform Black with No Chaser, CJ Lawrence. Welcome. Thank you for joining us here. And then also with us, we have attorney and civil rights professor at Washington Lee University in Virginia, Dennis Sweet IV.
Good evening, Candice. How you doing?
So welcome to you both. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you again for joining me on a Tuesday night, Cinco de Mayo, nonetheless. So let's get straight into it. And I want to make sure no one's muted. No one's muted here. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So the SCOTUS decision basically upholds a lower court decision that uses Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act essentially against those who it's meant to protect. So back in 2022, for those who may not have been following this as closely, back in 2022, a group of Black voters challenged Louisiana's congressional map to get more representation for Black voters there. Louisiana is a state where Black people make up about a third of the population there. And a judge ordered the map to be redrawn. That resulted in 2 of Louisiana's 6 congressional districts becoming predominantly Black. Then you had a group of self-described non-white voters challenging that map in 2024 as unconstitutional, an unconstitutional gerrymander rather. But last Wednesday, the High Court upheld that view. So the question is, really now what? CJ, I know that you basically went off on your own social media platform about this. And Dennis, we talked at length about this last week when I reported on it for Global News. So whoever would like to take this first, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you for setting it up, Candice. It's a pleasure to be here with you and Dennis this evening. So thank you for having me. So as you stated, yes, Louisiana v. Calais is a case where essentially Louisiana's court ordered a second majority. The issue in the case was whether the Louisiana court ordered a second majority Black congressional district, SB 8, whether it was constitutional or not, or whether it constituted a racial gerrymander under the 14th and 15th Amendment. I would say that what we're seeing and witnessing right now, particularly as it relates to laws that directly impacted Black folks, the civil rights laws, the voting rights laws, is an opposition that has become very clever in how it pushes back and frames issues. Essentially, what we're seeing is civil rights and the rulings in many civil rights cases being used against Black people and other minorities, and leveraged to break the same things that they built. Essentially, what we have to do back is go look back a little further to the issue that brought about the Louisiana v. Calais case, which was a previous ruling where the federal court, the NAACP, the Louisiana NAACP, brought the issue before the court with regard to the way that the districts had been drawn up. Louisiana, 33% Black, had never had a statewide elected official that was Black, and they also struggled with having representation that reflected the racial makeup of the state. So the federal district court made a determination that this did need to be revisited, and ultimately it was revisited. And the decision was that they needed to redraw the district. Of course, gerrymandering is a term that highlights and underscores the drawing of an oddly shaped voting district. Districts that can be packed, which would mean that essentially we pack it with the types of voters that we want there, whether that's racial makeup, uh, their economic background, any number of factors that go into the consideration. So a packed gerrymandered district or a cracked district, which would mean that we are drawing it in such a way that we essentially dilute the power that would exist if we drew this in a manner that it should exist, or that made sense or was it within reason. I wanted to set the framework up there, and then I'll hand it to Dennis, and we can get back into it with essentially what is happening in Louisiana v. Callis.
And first greetings to both of you all. And CJ, I think you did a great job of, and you too, Candace, a great job of breaking down the nature of the ruling. And I'll just add on that I think it's unfortunate, we're seeing the teeth of the Voting Rights Act ripped away, as well as the Civil Rights Act and all the work that has been previously done. And it seems that the court is taking a stand that we don't need these protections anymore, which ironically, I think this day and age is we need it more than ever. Just like we did during the civil rights movement, when we had these laws, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, we saw our ancestors fight, march, dogs put on them, seen them hosed down, treated like less than human, and the very things that they fought for, they're using those tools to suppress us even further. So I think when you really read the case and read some of the opinion, it's as if the court is saying two things that stand out to me. One, they're saying we don't have these racial issues anymore. That America's great, and there's no racial issues. There's no need for any of this. And that just sets the tone to start peeling back everything that has been done. And also what we're seeing is the standard to try to show that these acts are needed is being raised to the point where it's almost impossible to show, because we know they're not going to outright come out and say we're doing things for for racist reasons or to marginalize the Black community. So if they don't say it, they're essentially saying if you don't have any direct evidence of intent, we're not going to allow the Voting Rights Act to have any teeth. So, I just think it's unfortunate, but I think that, we see this played out in court. So we just have to be strategic with what are the next steps, because there are more cases coming, and it's going to take good litigation and good strategy to try to get ahead.
Yeah, I agree, Dennis. Candace, I know you're probably about to ask another question, but what I would say is that we kind of have to look to the history of what has occurred, the recent history, probably the last 13 years in particular, and Justice Roberts, who was the Chief Justice on ruling on this particular matter, and also who ruled on Shelby County v. Holder in 2013, which essentially removed preclearance, is what set the table and the tone for all of what we're witnessing right now. Preclearance is essentially it was a mechanism that was put in place for Southern states, in particular the Confederate states, those with a history, a direct history of discrimination, particularly as it relates to voting rights against Black people, and the Voting Rights Act protected us in that regard. When that was gutted, and those states were no longer required to show why they were changing the districts in the manner in which they were, it began to set the tone for what we're currently witnessing now as it relates to this. And so now what we're witnessing is a twisting of the very laws that were intended to protect us, and them saying, well, no, you can't draw or gerrymander a Black district because that's racist. When the reason that they were redrawing the district in the first place was because the federal court determined that the districts that were previously drawn in favor of white people was racist. So
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not quite sure how surprising it is, given some of the other decisions that have come down from this Supreme Court in particular. But it is interesting, as you say, like sort of, I mean, basically the weaponization of Section 2 and some of those other provisions within the Voting Rights Act that are meant to protect Black and minority voters. The fact that the court would say that they found the drawing of the map that, you know, granted the two predominantly Black districts to be too reliant on race is interesting when you have Representative Cleo Fields from Louisiana, who basically brought this, argued the case before the SCOTUS, saying, well, you know, and, you know, paraphrasing here that, you know, you can't take race into consideration, but they basically legalized partisan gerrymandering, if you will. Both of you have had substantial time practicing law in Jackson, Mississippi, which is like really right next door, if you will, just a state over from New Orleans. And I'm just wondering, you know, we've already seen, you know, Louisiana is now, they suspended their primaries, and we have other states sort of trying to follow suit, sort of like scrambling to redraw their maps as well, particularly in the South. And it's I want to be clear, like, it's not that we haven't sort of seen this also take place in other democratically held states, Virginia, California. But I'm just wondering, especially from you all's perspective, having, you know, practiced and argued cases down there, like how is this playing out? And Dennis, I know that you are up here in Virginia now, but you might still have your ear to the ground on, you know, what people are saying, what they're worried about, and if you think that this will, you know, go through in what we know is a Republican-held state in Mississippi.
Well, yeah, that certainly seems to be the plan. I think that a lot of people celebrated on the other side in Mississippi. I saw a lot of people. I don't want to. I don't know who they're rooting, you know, for or against, but it seems like the people who were celebrating were the people you would expect to celebrate this. So, you know, you would anticipate that that's their plan, that's their goal. But I think that, you know, it's kind of early to tell in Mississippi. I'd hope that, you know, we have some good litigation to try to prevent these things going forward in Mississippi. But I think that just collaterally, you may see the effect. You may see the effect based off of how the Congress looks. So, you know, I'm thinking about local elections. You may not see the effect right away, but collaterally, it may affect who can get to the polls. It'll affect the laws, and then, of course, directly, I do believe there's some momentum that we're anticipating a shift in the congressional seats as well.
Sorry, I was muted. Particularly whose district comes to mind is Benny Thompson's. And CJ, since you're still down there in Mississippi, what are you hearing? And, you know, I haven't spoken with Congressman Thompson at all to sort of like get their thoughts. I'm up here in Washington, of course, but I'm wondering if there's a feeling or an angst around, you know, if he'll still be able to hold on to his seat if Mississippi is able to also redraw their districts as well.
Well, I think it's a great question, Candice, and it actually is a very real and very urgent issue, in that Benny Thompson is currently, I think he's the longest tenured United States representative, Black United States representative in history, and certainly in the state of Mississippi. And that means something. And it is something that they have, by they, I mean Republican leadership in the state of Mississippi have explicitly been very vocal and very loud about attempting to. It's almost as though they're trying to beat Louisiana to being the first to satisfy the directives of the Trump administration in redistricting. And the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, if the only districts that are going to be redistricted by Republican majority led and supermajority led states, if only black districts are going to be redistricted in a manner that would disproportionately impact black voters, then who are they trying to usurp power from if not black people? If not, who are they attempting to not have be represented by their representatives? And so it seems to be very intentional, and I would argue that the court is being quite obtuse in its attempt to say essentially that these majority white, majority male led, majority white, majority male, majority Republican led districts must be explicit in how they discriminate in order for that discrimination to be deemed discriminatory. That's what you got in the Louisiana v. Calais ruling, and excuse me if I'm saying it wrong, but Benny Thompson is potentially in danger if they rewrite this district in the same way that Jasmine Crockett was in danger in Texas when they rewrote her district. Even though another representative did win it, it was that type of practicing and targeting that they were doing to dilute black political power. And it was intentional. But you see in Louisiana, you see in Mississippi, Georgia says that they're not going to change theirs right now. That's what the governor says as of right now. But 2028, they intend to do so. And so if you see this type of posturing and planning taking place right now, then you understand that it didn't start to take place yesterday. This is something that was clearly premeditated all the way to it leading itself up to the Supreme Court. They knew that they were going to organize a group of individuals of non-black citizens to push this in Louisiana, and they again have just found they have a supermajority on the court, and they found a way to legislate from the bench, and this again disenfranchise black people.
And Justice Elena Kagan, in her dissenting opinion, she said she called this it's allowing states to, quote, systematically dilute minority citizens' voting power. Dennis, you brought this up a little earlier in the conversation, that this basically means that you have to, prove intent, right? Prove intent that, the districts are being redrawn because it's, being racially motivated. So I'm just wondering, in either of you all's opinion, of course, that would be something that's hard to do, as we've already discussed, but is there any recourse here?
Yeah. Well, good opinions, of course, would be good. So, there are other courts. This litigation is going to be heard in district court. It's going to go to the Court of Appeals. So, good, strong opinions help, which means you need good, strong lawyers to put some good law out there, good briefs, good facts, and give the judges something to write strong opinions on. Also legislative, we have to push our legislatures to revisit the Voting Rights Act, because they can amend it, they can broaden it, they can change the language, because it's important to note the Voting Rights Act has not been declared unconstitutional. So, you still have it there. So they can amend the language to to kind of get out ahead of what where the Supreme Court is going. So and also just litigation, right? Being able to litigate the case. And me and CJ, we've both been practicing for a good number of years. We both have gray in our beards. But like CJ said, these things have been in play for a long time. The strategy is not something that they just came up with last year. It's something that has been in play. So it's going to take our young legal minds to start thinking now about getting ahead of this. We have to think 20 years ahead. We can't just
Yes.
think based off what we currently see. We can't just be reactionary. We have to be proactive. So that takes the smart legal minds getting ahead of this. And I know a lot of times when people are in law school, they have a lot of ambition. A lot of people want to get into public interest and civil rights. And then when they start practicing law and they start getting into the real world and they start getting loans, that starts to change. But I think we just need to emphasize the importance of staying steadfast and keeping that revolutionary spirit once you get the degree, not just when you're studying it.
Yeah. As Dennis stated, Candice, three of the justices that voted on this issue, three of the six justices that voted for this issue were appointed by the Trump administration in 2016. So this has been in the works. This has been in motion for a minute. And what helped to facilitate it was the Rucho v. Common Cause ruling in 2019, where the Supreme Court basically was hands off and said, if we can't determine whether the redistricting was done because of political motivation, if it's just a political partisan issue, we can't make a ruling on it because that's a political question matter, and Supreme Court can't rule on a political question matter. It has, and that set the table for them to say, well, unless it's explicitly racist, we will be hands off with it because we won't be able to prove that it's an issue. But if what we're seeing now is conversations happening around only Black majority districts being the districts all across the country that are going to be targeted as a result, as Dennis said, the argument still can be made. I mean, it's not over. We'll still be able to make those arguments. And what we're also seeing in addition to that are state courts in places like Maryland, and where they're majority Democratic, they're implementing statewide voting rights acts to replace or protect where the Federal Voting Rights Act has been kind of defamed in a way. So we're seeing that, and that's promising in the places that are built to be able to vote in that manner. It's still a bit of a climb in a place like Mississippi, where even though we are about 40% Black, we had a Republican conservative supermajority up until the decision that was made in the ruling in the Mississippi redistricting case allowed for us to break that supermajority with the election of Johnny Dupree to the Senate.
And it's not just, Mississippi too. I know we've been talking a lot about Mississippi because it's right next door, and you guys have, so much experience practicing law there. But it's also, we were here with Alabama a few years ago. Florida is also trying to do some of the same things. So I think it's, of course, the timing is always very interesting. I think when these things come down, especially with the midterms being just a few months away. It's definitely obviously something to watch for and see how this plays out exactly. I want to thank you both for hopping on with me again tonight on a Tuesday night. I would like to get any last thoughts from either of you, from both of you. And, if there's anything that you'd like to, bring up, anything that you think that it's important for, our audience here to really understand about what's at play that maybe we haven't touched on, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I'll just say that kind of big picture. I've been hearing a lot of discussion about how it just seems like every time we take one step forward, it seems like we take two steps backward. And it's quite discouraging. But I do think if you look at the big picture, I believe that you have to have a solid foundation to grow anything. I believe that if you have a house and the house has bad foundation, I don't care how you try to fix that roof or how you try to paint the house, whatever you do to it, the house is destined, to have bad foundation. I believe in law. We talk about fruits of the poisonous tree, and if the ground is poison, then it'll grow poisonous fruit. So I think about these laws, and I think about the construction of these laws and the Constitution. That when it was originally developed, we were was it 3/5 of a man? So from the inception of law, we have been deemed lesser than. So it doesn't surprise me that in 2026, the Supreme Court still has that same sentiment that the black vote, voice, um, and just being is lesser than. And I think that's reflected from these laws. And I think we have to have a real serious sit down talk with ourselves about who we are as a nation. And in order to solve a problem, you can't just put a new roof on the house. You have to uproot it. So we really have to, consider having some serious um, uprooting type conversations to solve these problems.
No, you're absolutely spot on, Dennis. And I would just add that now is going to be a time where more than ever we're going to have to get out the vote in communities, particularly in the southern states where it's densely populated with black people, and do have voter turnout in record types of numbers at state and local levels, because the state legislators is where the redistricting initially occurs. They're the ones doing the gerrymandering in state to state. So in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, where there are dense black populations, we're going to have to activate uh, ourselves, and that's not to say we don't show up to vote. We do, but even more of us are going to have to get out there and do it. It cannot be tight margins in the way that we normally see elections. We often see these elections where it's 48% to 52%. If we want to change it, we are going to have to be very concerted in our efforts to get out that vote. We're going to have to start documenting everything. Uh, we're if you're being discriminated against in your district where you're running, or attempting, where you're either running for election or you're attempting to vote for someone who's running for election, you're gonna have to document that. Uh, I think that what we understand that one of the best things that the conservatives do is cheat. They know how to change the rules when the rules no longer favor them, and they consistently do that. The thing that we have to do to combat against that, which might sound idealistic, is we're going to have to fight harder than we ever fought before, or as hard as we have fought before. That might be the better way to frame it.
And I guess I lied because I do have one more question that I'd like to just sort of punt at you guys. Obviously, we know what happened with the 2024 presidential election. So we're here now. But my question is, were there missed opportunities within the Biden administration that you all, may have, thought about or noticed, just sort of like looking back, that may have prevented, some of these rulings from coming down now? Biden had, at least I believe it had been floated at some point during, his term, of adding more Supreme Court justice seats. So I'd just like to get your take, you all's take on that before we close out.
Well, that's an excellent question. CJ may be better equipped to answer it than me. Keeps his ear and eyes to everything going on both ends. And I really don't know if what to kind of look backwards with the Biden administration. I mean, of course, I have some ideas, but it's it's just such a unique question and a unique position that we're in. And I say that because me and CJ, we talk all the time, and he predicted all this years ago. He said what was going to happen. He said what was going to happen when Trump was going to get elected, and he saw this ahead of time. So I mean, it's hard to say. It really is hard to say, but I will say, looking forward, we're definitely gonna have to do something, and we're definitely gonna have to be more strategic than we were. So, just as a general answer, I think more strategy, more open mindedness, and more knowledge, being more knowledgeable about it for all of us, probably could have led to something to preempt it.
I will tell you that the idea of expanding the Supreme Court scared me a bit, only because usually when we give an idea to the opposition, they take it and go a mile with it when they get it back. So, I mean, I think there were probably opportunities if they wanted to try to expand the court to potentially do that, but that would just mean that Trump, with the power that he has right now, would be able to do the same thing, or would likely do the same thing. I mean, that's what we see. We we did this. Our ancestors, our families fought for civil rights. Now we see them using the very same civil rights. The pattern that we see with conservatives, with Republicans in particular, is that they, with racists, even white supremacists, is they will take the thing that we fought for, flip it, and then use it against the people who fought for the thing. And so, any ideas that are being floated as far as strategy is concerned, Dennis is a really good chess player. I almost don't want to show my hand to them because what we're seeing, I mean, they even take the words that we told people to stay woke, and now woke is a pejorative. So, like, to me, I may be answering from an emotional place, but the idea of I don't put what's happening right now on the Biden administration. I will say that people should have voted for Kamala. Like, I don't think we would have been experiencing this if she was in office. Not to this extent, not this way, but we're experiencing what we're experiencing because racists be racist. So,
well, on that note, CJ, Dennis, I really appreciate you guys. Any last words before we wrap up?
Peace and blessings.
Yes, for sure.
Peace and blessings to all. Yes.
Peace and blessings. I love what you're doing with this. It's cool. Very cool. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. And if you missed the live, you can always go back on YouTube. It's at Miss Candice. I'm about to mess up my own YouTube. You'll see the link. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and have a great evening.
Have a great evening. That's my line, brother.
Shout out to the good brothers. Hi.